We are going to start on page 68 with the blessing for the morning. Modani lifanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shehechezarta b'nishmati b'chemla, rabba emunatecha, rabba emunatecha, modani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shehechezarta b'nishmati b'chemla, rabba emunatecha, rabba emunatecha, rabba emunatecha. Yes, go for the harmony. And welcome to everybody watching online. Whether you're in Zoom or you're watching on the live stream, thanks for being with us. You can find the prayer book on our website. Go to our website under virtual resources. You'll see a link for Mishkan Tefillah. Page 75, and what I'm going to do is invite those of you who are with us in the sanctuary to share in reading prayers. You don't have to, but if you'd like to, we'll go around from one person to the next, taking turns reading the English prayers. I'll let you know when it's your turn. So on page 75, and Beth, if you'd like to read.
May the one whose spirit is with us in every righteous deed be with all who work for the good of humanity and bear the burdens of others, and who give bread to the hungry, who clothe the naked, and take the friendless into their homes. May the work of their hands endure, and may the seed they sow bring abundant harvest.
I just realized that if you're reading in the sanctuary, they're not going to give you a chance, right? Okay. We'll work together on this. This is a team effort. Because those of you who are watching online, I won't go through all the tech stuff of it, but we kind of have to. There we go, including tech mentions. The next prayer in the service on page 76 is you get yourself centered physically before you center yourself spiritually. So I'm going to do an English version of this prayer that's in the songbook on page 4. If you look down at the bottom of page 4 of the songbook. I thank you for my life, body and soul. Help me realize I am beautiful and whole. I'm perfect the way I am, and a little broken too. I will live each day as a gift I give to you. Baruch atah Adonai Rofecho basar umafli lasot. Baruch atah Adonai Rofecho basar umafli lasot. Whoa, whoa. I thank you for my life, body and soul. Help me realize I am beautiful and oh so beautiful, oh so holy. I'm perfect the way I am, and a little broken too. I will live each day as a gift I give to you, my God, my God. Page 78, and yes, we're going to read in English here. Shauna, would you like to read?
My God, the soul you have given me is pure. You created it, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God, and God of my ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. Praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind.
Baruch atah Adonai, asher biyado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol basar ish. Page 80. We're going to chant our way through these morning blessings. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lasech vivina, lahavchin ben yom uvein laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Zokev kifufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, roka haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, anoten laya'ev koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hama'avir sheina me'enai, utenuma me'afapai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tselem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael betifara. Page 86. Together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And moving to the English at the bottom of the page. And GP, would you like to read?
O Adonai our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths, and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel, may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai hamilamei Torah le'amo Yisrael. Page 88. Lisa?
These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all.
Staying in the English online, and Max, would you like to lead?
The responsive reading on page 102.
Sure. Even if our mouths were full of song as the sea,
And our tongues full of joy in countless ways.
and our lips full of praise as wide as the sky's expanse,
And were our eyes to shine like sun and moon.
if our hands were spread out like heaven's eagles,
And our feet swift like young deer.
we could never thank you adequately, Adonai.
Our God and God of our ancestors, to bless your name for 10,000 of the many myriads of times.
You granted favors to our ancestors and to us.
And back to you.
On page 105, the conclusion of Pesukei de Zimra, which means snippets of song, the warm-up section to the morning service, concludes with this fantastic blessing. Praised are you, oh, and there they are, they're singing outside, the geese. The geese are joining in the chorus. This blessing at the bottom of page 105, we praise you, God, because you love a good song, which is just such a fabulous blessing. Here's a setting for that particular prayer, the Hebrew of that particular prayer. Baruch atah Adonai El Melech Gadol Batishbachot El Haodaot Adon Haniflaot Habocher B'shirei Zimra Habocher B'shirei Zimra Zimra Melech Elchei Ha'olami Melech Elchei Ha'olami Melech Elchei Ha'olami. Well, we got it. You know, and I was looking for a while, those of you online, I'm counting heads, of course, and or not counting, as they say, not counting. And I kept looking at the screen, and there were 4 images, and I realized, oh, one of them was me. And I was wondering if you counted. I can't count myself twice. That was a little strange. It was like, wow. Okay, so page 106. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah Be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'gala uv'isman hariv v'yimeru Amen Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach Le'olam ulol me'al maya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal Shemei Kudisha Brichu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran bi'alma V'yimeru Baruch et Adonai hamevorach, Baruch Adonai hamevorach, leolam va'ed, Baruch Adonai hamevorach, leolam va'ed. You may be seated, page 110. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, Yotzer or uvorei choshech, Oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha berachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh bechol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam bechochma asita, malah ha'aretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or she'asita yifa'arucha sela. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'nizkechu lanu mehera le'oro, baruch ata Adonai, yotzer ha'me'orot. Page 112. Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabbah, Ahavtanu, Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabbah. Adonai Eloheinu, how deeply you have loved us, how deeply you have loved us, how deeply you have loved us, Adonai Eloheinu. Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Rabbah, Ahavtanu, 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 Adonai Eloheinu. Page 114. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed, Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, B'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha, Ve'hayu hadavarim ha'ele, Asher anochi mitzavecha, Hayom al levavecha, Vishinantam levanecha, V'dibarta bam, B'shivtecha b'veitecha, Uvlechtecha v'derech, Uvshochbecha uv'kumecha, Ukshartam le'ot al yadecha, V'hayu letotafod b'neinecha, Uktavtam al mizuzot beitecha, Uvisharecha, Leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai, V'tem kedoshim lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem lelohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Amen. And we're going to go back to a reading from the room, page 121. Beth, would you like to lead us responsibly at the bottom of the page?
For us,
121.
121, thank you. The eternal truth is that you alone are God and there is none else.
May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exult in your justice.
Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks.
Let nation not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war anymore.
You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart.
The stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your people, where you were strangers in the land of Egypt.
Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor? Asked God.
We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy.
Praise to God Most High.
Blessed is God and deserving of blessing. Continuing the English on 123 at the bottom of the page. Sean?
And what is my lifespan? I'm like a man gone out of Egypt. The Red Sea parts, I cross on dry land, 2 walls of water, on my right and on my left. Pharaoh's army and his horsemen behind me. Before me the desert, perhaps the promised land too. That is my lifespan.
Page 122.
22, the third paragraph in Hebrew on the page. Tzur Yisrael, Kuma, Kuma, Tzur Yisrael, Bezrat Yisrael, Tzur Yisrael, Kuma, Kuma, Tzur Yisrael, Bezrat Yisrael, V'futechinu mecha Yehuda v'Yisrael, Go Aleinu Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kadosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Baal Yisrael. Now the thing about this melody is it's got movement to it, and on the word kuma, which means arise, it's customary for the congregation to arise. So this melody gets you up and moving, okay? Let's try it. Everybody's going to stand up and Tzur Yisrael, Kuma, Kuma, Tzur Yisrael, Bezrat Yisrael, Tzur Yisrael, Kuma, Kuma, Tzur Yisrael, Bezrat Yisrael, Ufdechinu mecha Yehuda v'Yisrael, Go Aleinu Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kadosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael, Tzur Yisrael, Kuma, Kuma, Tzur Yisrael, Kuma, Kuma, Tzur Yisrael, Kuma, Kuma. Page 124. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 Svatai Tivta. Na 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 Ufi Yagi. Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 Svatai Tivta. Na 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 Ufi Yagid. Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor Vahanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vikonei Hakol, Vizocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Bi'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Vezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach, U'Morid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofech Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayim Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Bal Givurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit, Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Atah lahakayot hakol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. You may be seated. We're going to do the end of the Kedusha in English in the songbook. on page 21. We are gifts, we are blessings, we are history in song. We are hope and we are healing, we are learning to be strong. We are words and we are stories, we are pictures of the past. We are carriers of wisdom, not the first and not the last. Dor vador, nagid god lecha. Dor vador, we protect this chain. From generation to generation. Dor vador, these lips will praise your name. Looking back on the journey that we carry in our hearts, from the shadow of the mountain to the waters that would part. We are blessed and we are holy, we are children of your way. And the words that bring us meaning, we will have the strength to say. Dor vador, nagid god lecha. Dor vador, we protect this chain. From generation to generation, Dor vador, these lips will praise your name. Page 132, we're going to go back to reading in this room. And at the top of the page, GP, would you like to read the English?
Those who keep it a delight will rejoice in your wrath. And people that follows Shabbat will be delight in your goodness. For being pleased with the seventh day you hallowed it, as the most precious of days, drawing our attention to the work of creation.
Thank you. Lisa, on page 137 at the top.
Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence.
And on page 139, we're going to take turns going around each one of us reading one of these passages. And the refrain, Modim anachnu lach, means we thank you, but it's a little more than thank, it's acknowledge with gratitude.
Expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imagination. Modim anachnu lach. And that's over to you.
For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons.
Modim anachnu lach.
For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements.
Modim anachnu lach.
For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression.
Modim anachnu lach.
For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without phantasm, for understanding of views not shared.
Modim anak lulav.
For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom.
Modim anak lulav. For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose. Modim anak lulav.
We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds.
Together, blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, Batol Shemcha, U'lecha Na'eh. Back to you.
Page 140. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Chain v'chesed v'rachamim Chain v'chesed v'rachamim Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Amecha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Tova Uvracha Tova Uvracha. Silent prayers are on page 142 and 143. In the middle of page 142. Yehiyu liratzon imre fi vehegyon libi lefanecha Adonai Tsuri Adonai Tsuri Adonai Tsuri V'goali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable, be acceptable. May the words of my mouth and the meditations ratzon imre fi ve'yon libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri Adonai tzuri Adonai tzuri v'gorali. Well, we get to read Torah. Thank you, Lisa Kamar, for being our Ba'alat Kriyah today, our Torah reader and Haftarah reader. So, if you like, while we're taking the Torah out of the ark, in a moment, while we're taking the Torah out of the ark, you may want to pick up one of the Chumashim, one of the Torah commentaries, so that you can follow along with the Torah reading. And I'm going to need some assistance in the Torah service. So I'm going to need one person who will open up the ark doors, and another person will take the Torah out. We're going to use the one in the middle, the Torah in the middle, and carry that Torah around the room, and then bring that back up here. The person who opens the ark doors, closes the ark doors, and helps to uncover the Torah and gets that down. And then I'm also going to need somebody to do an aliyah, recite Torah blessings. So, GP, you're not eligible yet for Torah blessings, but you are eligible to do those other things. So, and then afterwards, we'll need somebody who can lift the Torah, which requires a little bit of strength. So, who wants to open up the ark doors, close the ark doors, and cover the Torah? Anybody? You're on. And who wants to carry the Torah around the sanctuary? Okay, you're on, Max. And when you take the Torah out, I'm going to run through the full liturgy for the Torah service. I want to make sure that you hear it all. So when you take that Torah out, come stand with me up here until we sing Lecha Adonai, and that's when you can carry it around the room. Torah blessings. Who would like an aliyah? Anybody want to do the aliyah? Beth, you're on for the aliyah. Great. And lifting the Torah afterwards. Max, you may be back on for that.
I've never done it, and it terrifies me, but I'll do it.
You sure? Because anybody else want to do the lifting? All right. So we're going to turn to page 244, and while we sing, that's when you come up, Max and GP, to help take the Torah out of the ark. Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai, v'ein kemasecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim heitiv avirtzoncha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim, Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Ki lecha levad batachnu, Melech Elram v'nisa Adon olamim. Page 246. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Udavar Adonai meherushalayim. Page 248. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, L'amo Yisrael b'hikdushato. And now you're going to repeat after me. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shema.
Turn around and face the ark. Gadlul Adonai iti, uneromema shemo yachdav. And now you can walk in the Jeep, you're going to close the ark doors. Gedula v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod ki chol b'shamayim uvaretz ki chol b'shamayim uvaretz lecha Adonai hamamlacha ve'amid na'aseh lecho l'rosh. Just drape that over the back of that chair. There you go. Thank you. You may be seated. That's it. Okay. So you may want to pick up a chumash so you could follow along with the Torah reading. Blue Torah commentaries and what's that? So those of you who are watching online, let me find that page, and we are, it's Parshat Truma. We are in Exodus, and we will be reading from Exodus chapter 25, beginning in verse 1. Exodus 25, verse 1. And Lisa, if you want to come up, and we'll locate this reading. And, we're in the complete.
You might be in April. You might be in April. You're in Leviticus. You're in Leviticus.
Yeah, were you reading with somebody out of this one?
I just realized I didn't roll back Amanda Toomey. So
Yeah. Oh,
you're
wow.
in
Yeah.
you're in Metzora.
I feel like I'm in February.
Exactly.
We got a ways to go here. All right, here's the beginning of Leviticus. We're back in Exodus. And I'll tell you, while I'm doing this, I'll tell you a little bit of the structure of the text.
Sorry.
Oh, it's
I
fine.
feel like we're moving in time.
Yes, we're going backwards in time. So the book of Exodus is really divided into two sections. The first half of the book is narrative. Right? Remember, we talked about narrative, storyline. And then the second half is mostly law, with only a little bit of storyline.
Now, when you hit the law section, you start off with, I think I'm on I got the speaker on. There we go. Nope, I'm coming through the speaker.
I'm ready for a truma.
I'm good? All right. Yeah. So, hold on, we're getting close to it.
Truma tea.
Yeah. No, I missed it. So,
Sharon, you got a dog here in the page next time.
that's it. Great. Okay. So the second half of the book of Exodus, I said, is law, and it comes in several sections. The first section is easy. It's 10 Commandments. We all know that. And then right after the 10 Commandments, you get a whole bunch of laws that biblical scholars call the covenant code. And this extends for a couple of chapters, and they're all social law. They're all about how we're supposed to get along with one another. You know, what do you do if your neighbor's got a goring ox? That kind of thing. Then we get to what actually takes up the largest section of the laws in Exodus, which is all about the tabernacle, the portable tent of meeting that our ancestors carried through the wilderness during the wilderness period. There's probably some reality here and some elaboration of our history. So there may in fact be a recollection in Exodus of what we really did do during a stage of our history when we were wanderers, when we were semi-nomads. Because if you're a nomad, you worship in a tent. And every time you set down, you set up camp somewhere, you set up an enclosure of your sacred space, and in that enclosure is a tent, and we call that tent the tabernacle. What's that? like this summer, exactly like what we did. And it's interesting you make the connection. What Skylar said, you didn't hear this, but Skylar said, like what we did this summer. Yeah, we had a portable, we were wanderers. We couldn't be indoors anymore. We had to go outside, set up a tent. It actually makes a lot of sense. You need a tent in the desert. But they didn't do the sacrifices inside the tent. The sacrifices are performed outside the tent. So this whole big chunk, about 7 chapters of Exodus, deals with the construction of the tabernacle. And it is laid out in, the literary term for this is a chiastic structure. A chiasm, C-H-I-A-S-M, is where you go up one direction and then you come down the other direction. You give all the instructions and then they do it exactly the way God instructed them to do it. So you got several chapters of instructions and then what looks like a repetition, but it's actually, and so we did this and then we did that and then we did that. What's in between the two? The instructions and the carrying out the instructions, the one narrative passage at the end of Exodus is the golden calf. So the golden calf occupies the pivot point between these chapters of instructions, and then we went astray, and then, okay, now to demonstrate our dedication to God, we actually fulfilled the obligations that God laid out in all the instruction chapters. So this portion begins the set of instructions, and it begins with a verse that I guess I'll leave, Lisa, for you to offer your own observations about because of its importance to us. So we're reading chapter 25, verse 1, and if you're following along in here, it looks like you've all got it. Beth, what's your Hebrew name? Ta'amod Batya Bat Avraham V'Sarah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. V'daber Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el b'nei Yisrael, v'yichu li truma, me'et kol ish asher yadabnu libo, tikhu et trumati, וזאת התרומה אשר תיקחו מאיתם, זהב וכסף ונחושת, ותכלת וארגמון, ותולת שני ושש ועזים, ואורות אלים אדמים, ואורות תחשים ועצי שיטים.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Ata Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
I think you're going to want to stay up here, right? Yeah. And we'll come back to this. After Haftarah, we'll come back and talk about all these wonderful materials that they used and the opening line. I'm thinking of Atzei Shittim, the acacia wood. That's a very poetic kind of Hebrew, right? You wouldn't use that in modern Hebrew, but that's what it is. It's acacia wood. Yeah.
There's acacia wood on your reading table.
And all right, so lifting the Torah. I'm going to give you a quick lesson in this. Here's the trick, okay? I hope you're all listening to this. You take the Torah, you move it over the edge of the table, and you use the edge of the table as a fulcrum.
Yeah.
And that's going to make it easier. So you push down, and then bend your knees a little bit to pick it up.
It's okay if I don't open it up super wide?
You only have to open it up enough that we could see the inside text, and you
Okay.
don't have to hold it there for very long.
Then I turn
Then
around.
turn it, yeah, you turn around so we can see it, then bring it back, and I'll help you place it back down on here. And then, GP, we're going to need you to put the cover on the Torah, and I'm going to have you sit with the Torah.
And this is being recorded for the insurance, right? Okay, great.
Okay. Go ahead. And please rise.
You got this, Max.
V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. Hallelujah, hallelujah, ivdu avdei Adonai. Hallelujah, hallelujah, ivdu avdei Adonai. Hallelujah, hallelujah, ivdu avdei Adonai. Hallelujah, hallelujah, avdei Adonai. Hallelujah, hallelujah, ivdu avdei Adonai. Hallelujah, hallelujah, avdei Adonai. Hallelujah, 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 ivdu avdei Adonai. Hallelujah, 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 ivdu avdei Adonai. You may be seated. Okay, so we're going to go on to Haftarah, which is, these are some short Torah
Page
portions.
560.
Thank you. Page, what, 560?
560.
All right. And let me get you the brachot. Oh, you've got it. Okay. Where are you beginning in the
Verse
Haftarah?
7.
Starting, so we are in 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 7. If you got a chumash? Yeah.
560.
If you're in the Plowed Commentary, page 560. If you're reading in any other Bible, 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 7. We'll start with the bracha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratzav divrehem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael hamo u'v'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. והבית בהיבנותו, אבן שלמה מסע נבנה, ומכבוד והגרזן כל כלי ברזל, לא נשמע בבית בהיבנותו. פתח הצלע התיכונה אל כתף הבית הימנית, ובלולים יעלו התיכונה, ומן התיכונה אל השלישים. ויבן את הבית ויכלהו, ויספון את הבית גבים ושדרות בארזים. ויבן את היציע על כל הבית 5 אמות קומתו, ויאחוז את הבית בעצי ארזים. ויהי דבר אדוני אל שלמה לאמור, הבית הזה אשר אתה בונה, אם תלך בחוקותיי ואת משפטיי תעשה, ושמרת את כל מצוותיי ללכת בהם, והקימותי את דברי איתך, אשר דיברתי אל דוד אביך. ושכנתי בתוך בני ישראל, ולא אעזוב את עמי ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Thank you, Lisa. Beautiful. Oh, your mask. So, Well, let's talk about the Torah portion. Now, you could tell this week the Haftarah portion is directly connected to the Torah portion because the Torah portion is about the construction of the tabernacle, and then the rabbis pick a selection from the prophets that reminds them of that. They pick the selection from the book of Kings that describes Solomon building the first temple. So the temple and the tabernacle, not the same thing. Tabernacle from the wilderness period, the temple after the kingdom is founded and established, and they build a temple in Jerusalem. And there is a relationship. The temple looks a little like the tabernacle. It's got the same basic design with a courtyard where the sacrifices are performed and a building instead of a tent, and inside the building an inner chamber called the Holy of Holies where the 10 Commandments were kept. So all that is patterned after the tabernacle. And great graphic in the Plowed Commentary to explain the tabernacle. Without that, it's really hard to visualize all these pieces they're talking about. Though in the verses you read, they don't get up to that design yet. They're just talking about the materials that Moses is told to collect from the Israelites. So let's talk about this passage and what jumps out at you. Lisa, I'm going to turn to you first. What
from this passage? So again, we're back in the Torah. It's Exodus chapter 25, starting in verse 1. Exodus 25, verse 1. And in the Plowed Commentary, it's on page 545. Lisa?
So the verses that I read include the verse that we use here at Beth to explain our gifts of the heart membership commitment model. So it's a verse that I love a lot. Tell the Israelite people to bring me gifts. You shall accept gifts from me from every person whose heart is so moved. I love the heart is so moved. This is important to us, and we want to do this. This is something we want to support and contribute to.
I hope, are we on with everybody everybody's online you can talk to? So, and you look so comfortable, Simon. Oh my God. It just looks so cozy.
Sharon is the face palm.
That must have been one of the materials they used in the tabernacle. Sheepskin.
Sheepskin, yeah. He's just demonstrating this morning, yes.
You know, there's a word here that, even with all the, the heart, whose heart is so moved, there's an interesting word here for gifts. It's truma. Now, in modern Hebrew, the word for a gift is a matana.
Truma is a donation.
Yeah. So there's a different tone. It's a gift, but it's a gift with a sense of, I don't know if it's obligation or duty.
Yeah.
It's a gift with a sense of duty that, I give this out of a sense of love and responsibility. It's still a gift, because otherwise it doesn't make sense to say, from everyone whose heart is so moved. So it's still a gift. It's not a tax. And yet it's not like, oh, I gave you something nice because I like you, but there's a sense of obligation that somehow goes into it. I don't exactly know what the nuance is in this biblical word, truma. And you say modern Hebrew, truma is a donation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and just a question. Matana is just like that which is given. It's pretty straightforward. Is that a word that we find in Torah at all?
Yeah, I think that's a
sense.
biblical word. I don't think there's anything different. It's from the root notain.
Yeah, right,
It would be, I'm sure that we find incidents of that word.
Which to me that makes the truma even more special. If there's another word, and we know there aren't as many words in Torah as we have in modern English or even in modern Hebrew, so that if they have two somewhat synonymic.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to tease out. Simon?
So a couple things. The word truma is actually the root is actually used 3 times in the verses there, right? Trumati, truma, right? It's not just one simple, hey, give a donation. It's multiple different descriptions of it. And just on the Hebrew side of it, when you donate blood, My mom and I used to joke on the word trumpty-dum. Trumpty-dum.
Oh,
So Taramti is the same root,
I
litron.
donated, yeah.
And so you don't give blood, you donate blood in the same way. And it just seems interesting.
Oh, that is a great parallel.
Yeah.
Or as we say in the capital campaign, give till it hurts.
Have we been saying that?
I just did my taxes and I gave till it hurt.
I am, when I read this, by the way, I thought of this when we were doing the prayers and we sang L'Adore Adore. And this connection, it just dawned on me, this sense of, oh my gosh, I am indebted to all the people who created and sustained this congregation. None of us would be able to do what we're doing if it hadn't been for the commitments of so many people to keep this congregation going and to build this beautiful building. It is beautiful, and to sustain us as an organization. And that's a lot of people who gave gifts from their heart. So, even before we adopted the Gifts of the Heart program, there's just such a tremendous commitment. And the reason it feels so important to me is because over the past couple of weeks, there's been a tremendous amount of news in the Jewish world about the weakening fabric of Jewish institutions. And what's our future? And there's always been people on the sideline saying, well, you don't have to go build a synagogue, you don't have to contribute, you can just do your own thing. But there's a growth of that mentality of do it yourself, and you don't need one another. The congregations actually are an affirmation of we need one another, and we build something greater when we do it together. And it's never easy. It is just never easy to do it together. We struggle, and and we have committees. And let's face it, it's not easy, and they challenge us, and yet we are able to build something lasting and sustaining. And I don't believe that any of those claims that it can be done without collective effort will sustain Judaism. Beth?
Speaking as a long-term member, I just counted up 39 years ago I arrived, and the building.
You're almost done with your wandering.
That's true. I'm settled here. I bought my burial plot next to Sally Brown's and everything. Anyway, but when I got here, the building was not beautiful. It was the old version of the 1886 College Avenue. But that group of people who welcomed me so warmly, and a month after I got there, I was vice president of the synagogue. Everybody was working together, and this wouldn't be here, and all of you newer people wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for them.
Yeah. Well, that's a David Phillips type story. If you show up, they say, great, we're putting you in charge.
Oh, that was before David was president, actually.
If you show up and carry a table, that's the criteria.
Yeah. Anyway, yes.
Yeah, for the people who are willing to actually take second loans out on their homes and, go the full extent to really, achieve the start of this community is amazing.
Wow. Every person whose heart is so moved, it's just this beautiful expression that they didn't want the tabernacle, they didn't want the tabernacle to be the product of a tax. And that wouldn't work for us anyway. If it's going to happen, it is only going to happen through the dedication of members. And I feel a deep sense of gratitude for that. Something that we can all feel. I mean, it's not just me, all of us can feel that. I am fascinated by the material descriptions here, by the way. I love reading about the material descriptions because I characterize this Torah portion as an issue of better homes and temples. Because you get to read about how you can decorate it. Oh, wouldn't canned ram skins be good? That would look awesome. Let's do it in dolphin skins. Wow.
Rabbi, do you remember MTV had cribs, right? So like this is like displaying. There was a show where they'd go to celebrity homes and talk about all the materials of everything in the house. So it's like the more 80s version of that is the show Cribs, where they talked about every texture and every detail of what was decorating the home, and that's also like the way this is laid out as well. It's kind of interesting.
You know, I miss both of those shows, but having said that, I get it. What you're describing is an indication of people who absolutely love this, who must have been really cool. Can you believe that they had blue and purple and crimson yarns? They were fascinated by how elaborate the structure was, and it had to have been something pretty elaborate. And one of the things that I like to point out that people sometimes miss the order in which the information is presented. It's presented in groups, and the groups are in order of value. So, for example, what's the first thing that God says, again, it's the precious metals. Precious metals come first because it's the most valuable of the items that they're talking about. And then they go down to other categories. So the categories are in order, and within each category, the items are in order. Because if you look at the precious metals, it goes gold, silver, copper. This begins to tell you something about each of the categories. When they go to the textiles, which is the next category, which apparently was the next most valuable item that they're using, because it requires so much labor to make them. That's why it's valuable. These are labor-intensive items. Blue, purple, and crimson yarns. The yarns are dyed, and the blue, of course, is the most expensive. We know that because of the thread of blue, the chelet on a tzitzit, which we don't have to do anymore because it was too expensive. And the rabbis say, well, we can't impoverish people by our obligations. But the Torah says you're supposed to have a thread of blue on your tzitzit, and blue is the most expensive because it's the hardest to make. It's the hardest color to make. Red's easier to make, so the purple is in between. But then, if you keep looking at the materials, the fabrics rather, you'll notice that they are also in a hierarchy because yarn as a category comes before linen, which comes before goat's hair. Well, obviously, goat's hair is the cheapest of these. And I used to have a goat's hair sweater that I bought in Greece, and it was scratchy. It was not, what's the fine goat, merino wool? It was not merino, no. But linen is a fiber made from a plant, not from an animal.
Right, flax, which actually has become very common around here, flax plants.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. If I showed you a flax plant leaf, you'd say, oh, yeah, I got those in my yard, or the neighbors do, or whatever, yeah.
There's this whole description in that, what's that novel about the Jews in Babylonia, Schuyler by Maggie Anton?
Oh,
Rob Heister's daughter.
Well, that's not in Babylonia, that was the other one. Yocheved and.
It's like the second of that series where they.
Rocky daughter is in France.
Right, that's the other one.
It's the, yeah. I know what
Yeah. So it's they have a whole description of making the material out of flax and what they had to do to this reed in order to turn it into something you could weave. And then the yarn then is sheep's wool. But what makes it more expensive is it's dyed. And that's a consequence of more expensive material. So as you go down the line, it's all in order, basically. Okay, other comments about this passage?
Just the acacia wood, you're tied to Beth Emek in this passage in the building of the ark. And as you know, we have the 7 species all around you. But if you look on the reading table, on the left and right of it, there are 2 slats on each side of the side, and that is acacia wood. Go to the side, look down,
Yeah.
darker wood slats. There's 2 slats down that are darker there.
Yeah,
You
that's,
talking about these?
Yep. The builder told us that's supposed to be acacia wood or the equivalent.
You could, I wouldn't have any way of knowing that.
That's what they told us.
And
They incorporated acacia wood into our reading table, and I don't know, somewhere in the ark there was supposed to be acacia
We're
wood, but
taking it on face value, right?
yeah, but that's
That's our story and we're sticking to it.
that's what I was told. That's the story that was told to me.
Yeah, I can corroborate this.
Yeah.
I think that it's too soft to actually build with, so it's really just it's just.
decorative.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting that it's a soft wood.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, you see acacia in the Negev. If you travel through the Negev, those scraggly trees are acacia.
I really like verse 8, and I don't know, I'm jumping away from.
It's okay, yeah.
Let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. And I know we have songs that have been written, but the idea of God dwelling among the people as opposed to just being on high.
Yeah, it's a great line, and there's wonderful midrash on this line, because what does it mean? They're at Sinai, they haven't left Sinai, they meet God, God talks to them, and then they're supposed to go on to Israel, so you're not gonna leave God behind. Well, how are you gonna continue to have a relationship with God? God says, well, make me a sanctuary, and then I'll move in, and you can carry me with you. Wherever you go, I'll be there with you, right? That's the implication. But the Midrash says, oh, you would have thought that it would say, make me a sanctuary that I may dwell in it. You would think that that's what it would say. But it doesn't say, make me a sanctuary that I may dwell in it. It says, make me a sanctuary that I may dwell in them. That if you build it, I will be inside of each of you. I'm not in the tabernacle. I'm in you.
And betocham.
Bitocham. Yeah,
That's different from just saying if I were to dwell in it, you'd say abide or something.
Bitocham.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the singular ending.
Mhm.
And here it's a plural ending.
You've got to
In them. This is a beautiful midrash of what brings us together, what makes us feel, the sanctity that we did it together. Again, actually very much part of the theme of our Catholic campaign. This is going to unite our congregation. I like that verse very much. It could have said, yeah, make me a sanctuary. I'll take up residence there. That'll be my apartment when you're traveling. But it doesn't. Make me a sanctuary. That way you'll know that I'm inside each of you. And that very much speaks to us. Well, last comment? Anybody else? Okay.
I'll say one. I'll just share one more thing.
Please.
I was learning about how the gold in the exterior of the container for the 10 Commandments is requested to be not only outside of the container but inside, where no one is even going to look at it.
Right.
And so the Midrash talks about how important it is that this reflects on the importance of the inner person as opposed to the external. That the beauty is within as opposed to not just without. And
Exactly, biduk, as they say. That of all things, why would you need to decorate the inside of a box that you're never going to open up and nobody's ever going to see it? It's because what's inside counts as much as what's on the outside. It's a great midrash. All right, we're going to return the Torah to the ark, and then once we do, we're going to remain standing while we go on to Aleinu. So we'll sing while we bring the Torah back to the ark. And GP, if you would open the ark doors, and you can place that in there. It is a tree of life to them that hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. It is a tree of life to them that hold fast to it, all of its supporters are happy. Shalom, 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 shalom. Shalom, shalom. Page 282. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latekidu la liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, Shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, vanachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Page 287, let's read together. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity, cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Page 295. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for blessing. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ba'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uvizman kariv imru amen. Yehe shemei rabba mevarach le'alam ulalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudisha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechmata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. You may be seated. Max, do we have any announcements you want to share?
I do. Right. Father. Good morning, Shabbat Shalom. You know me. Thank you to the rabbi and to Lisa for their leadership this morning. Would you like to own your own home copy of Mishkan Tefillah? For a limited time, CCAR Press is offering a 20% discount for individual purchase of the Shabbat prayer book. There's a promo code available on the once around. It's valid only through this Monday evening. To match up with CBE services, you'll want to order the Shabbat version, and Rabbi Milder has advised that he will autograph your copy for free. This Wednesday, February 9th at 5 p.m. is Religion Chat, presenting the second program in the series, What Holy Books or Other Texts Are Important to Your Religion? You can find the Zoom link in the once around. And finally, the last Sunday of February, the 27th at 1 p.m., Rabbi Milder is hosting a Worship Leaders Workshop here in the sanctuary. You too can lead worship. Join us to learn tips for being a leader. This will be especially helpful for congregants who would like to lead services during the rabbi's upcoming sabbatical. The workshop will cover how to choose prayers, the logic behind our congregation's customs, and what to do if. All are welcome to participate in the workshop. You can RSVP with Rabbi Milder. Guitar lessons not included. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, so closing song, Ein Kelohenu, and I'm going to do a version that has English lyrics too. It's on page 8 of the songbook. Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kemoshienu. There is none like our God. There is none like our God. There is none like our God. Ein Kelohenu. Whoa, Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kemoshienu. Who is like our God? Who is like our God? Who is like our God? Elohenu. Oh, Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kemoshienu. We give thanks to our God. We give thanks to our God. We give thanks to our God. No Elohenu. Oh, Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kemoshienu. Sing praise to our God. Sing praise to our God. Sing praise to our God. Baruch Eloheinu. Oh, Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kemoshienu. You are our God. You are our God. You are our God. Atahu Eloheinu. Whoa, Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kemoshienu. There is no God but you. Ein Kelohenu. Shabbat Shalom. Bye, everybody. Thank you for being online. Shabbat Shalom.